Hello everyone, I'm Suyash. Uh, I'm from Calcutta and I've been building brands for the last 10 years. I think my latest baby with my wife Anisha has been Dot and Key. We are a D2C beauty brand which we started about 4 to 5 years ago. And recently Nykaa, which is the largest beauty retailer, actually bought a majority stake in our company to really help us build our baby into one of the most loved consumer brands in the country. During a course of the 4 5 years that we have spent building the brand, I think there are numerous learnings that we have had as individuals, as founders, as entrepreneurs. So I think I'll try to kind of bring you all in touch with our key learnings. The learnings might be very small, not very large, but they're really significant in building a sustainable long-term brand. And hopefully by the end of the presentation, I'll be able to kind of guide you and show you our key learnings for it. Like, firstly, I'd like to take you to what's a sustainable brand, because, we've been talking about D2C, we've been talking about D2C pivoted, it's not doing that well anymore, but there's nothing known as a D2C brand. There's nothing known as a D2C consumer brand. All brands is first a consumer brand. D2C is just a channel of sale. Like a consumer brand will maybe start D2C and then use offline, retail, other channels of sale. So let's build a strong consumer brand first, and then we can choose the right channel where we can, kind of sustainably grow our businesses. So in my dictionary, in our learning, this is the definition of what we have coined as sustainable. So I think a brand that outlives the test of time. So brands that you're seeing, the brand grew in 2 years, the brand grew in 4 years, but the biggest brands in the world, the most known brands in the world, have lasted for centuries, decades. And those are the kind of brands you want to build. And these brands stay relevant for its consumers. And these brands build strong businesses commercially and financially. And that's the only way you can build a long-term sustainable consumer brand. I think the key for any consumer brand is to stay relevant. So most of the time we say, D2C is not doing so well. What do we do about it? In honesty, it's all about creating a brand that people still love. I'd like to give a very small example of Dot and Key and our history. We started the brand about 4 5 years ago, and we started pivoting right before COVID hit. So we started pivoting in, say, October 2019, and by March, April, COVID hit. And we just started pivoting at that point of time. And, by April first week, we realized when everything shut down, we realized we don't have money to pay for our staff. We don't have money to pay for our salaries. What do we do? And we thought that we still need to be relevant for our audience sitting at home. So we started deep diving, we started doing our homework, and we realized that, we come under essentials. So we can kind of take all the clearances from the government and start selling our products online through our website, which we already had in place. See, we took the clearances, we started about a month before any other brand started this. And, the only reason why we wanted to start early was obviously to pay the salaries, but fundamentally, we realized that the consumption pattern of consumers has drastically changed. In a consumption basket, a consumer would probably go out and spend money in restaurants, in physical shopping of clothes, in probably going for holidays. But because of the pandemic, they couldn't do any of that, right? So that's why people were at home, not buying any color cosmetics, nothing. So the only thing they could actually spend their money on would be self-love, self-care, so skincare. That's where we thought that we had a huge opportunity in front of us. It was a threat, but we saw it as an opportunity, and we started a month before anyone else. And, voila, our super premium products started flying off the shelves, and we couldn't keep up with the demand. So I feel being relevant to our audience at that point of time really helped us pivot as a brand. But on the flip side, once COVID ended in a year from then, and the effects of COVID starting wearing off, we started getting a lot of resistance from customers coming and buying products online, and especially the kind of prices that we wanted to kind of charge. And we started looking into it, and we thought that, because we foresaw consumers buying products online and we kind of pivoted early, we should have seen this coming, right? Because when the regular consumption pattern started, people started going out, uh, the consumption pattern, the spends of consumers switched from self-love, self-care to probably makeup, to probably going out to restaurants, going on holidays. Um, and that's why the kind of consumption basket that we previously had in skincare had reduced drastically. So we had to change, but we were a little late for it. So that, and then we took about 6 to 8 months to kind of pivot back and kind of relooked at our business model. But having said that, that again brings back to our central point of how you need to be relevant for consumers for the longer term. So you always have to know how the consumer is going to think. You always have to understand their pulse if you want to run a successful consumer brand. I think knowing your customers, I think a consumer brand starts with really understanding the pulse of consumers, because the products that you make have to really strike a chord in their heads. They really like to like your products, and that is the only way you can really succeed having a consumer brand. Always listening, like, you can start a product, but then consumer habits change, but you have to keep on listening to them. I have a very small example of Birkenstock shoes. This brand started 300 years ago, and the most ugly looking slippers. They made the most ugly looking slippers, and 300 years later, they figured out that their ugly looking slippers were the most comfortable slippers for consumers. It actually catered to people's healthy foot more than just a fashion accessory. And that's why it was super successful. And 300 years now, like, they've been there for 300 years. After 300 years, they're still relevant to their audience just because they've created a niche, because they've listened to the audience and created the right product for the longer term and not just found just trends. I think knowing where the G is. We all know that everyone wants to be where the growth is, right? But as a consumer brand, growth keeps on changing from category to category. So knowing which category to be on at any given point is probably your greatest weapon. Because like, if you are selling a product in a category that is doing phenomenally well, and you're present there and you're aggressively marketing in that particular space, and you're focusing on that space, you will always get that delta revenue growth that you're looking for. So it's fundamentally, you always need to know where the growth's happening. Yeah, so I feel people are the muscle memory of any organization. You need to retain people to build the best consumer businesses. Me and Anisha were discussing a very simple point at work. The amount of time we are spending in actually teaching new team members on how to do their job. And we realized that we're spending about 30 to 40% of our time doing this. So imagine if you had team members who were working with you from inception and knew the entire DNA of your organization, how you functioned, and knew the function really well, that 30 to 40% of your time could really be spent on focusing on what matters the most, how to get growth and financial stability for your organization. So these people actually know how the organization functions, how to do the work. So they're actually the muscle memory of your organization. So make sure that any successful consumer brand, make sure that they retain good talent and they keep on updating them and training them to be relevant to what the organization needs. I think habits matter. Great companies are not just built by great ideas. It's built by great habits that founders build and create along with the organization. And great personal habit leads to building great businesses. I've had the privilege of actually working very closely with Falguni over the last few months. And, I've been noticing that, why did she become so successful? Like, what was the reason for success? And I was observing how the organization functioned, and we've attended multiple meetings there, and what was the basic culture that set them apart as an organization. And I think the one clear thing that stood apart was the sheer sense of timing. Like, she made sure that she was in every meeting 2 minutes before time. And if the leader of the organization is actually in the meeting 2 minutes before the time, every single team member knows that they have to be in the meeting 2 minutes before the time. And this percolates down to the last T. And this ultimately results in every internal meeting, be it with the founders, without the founders, lead to a very, very disciplined organization. I'll give you a small example. We were in the Bombay office with the leaders of the organization, all the CXOs of the organization, the board members, and we had a meeting, a full day meeting. And even in that meeting, Anchit, who's Falguni's son, who heads the beauty business, he had a 30-minute slot. So at the 28th minute, there was a bell that rang to tell Anchit, you have only 2 minutes left. So it doesn't matter who it is, the discipline of time, the efficiency of time, and respecting people's time is what makes them extremely efficient as people. I think the second learning from them in terms of building a strong personal habit would be when you're getting into a meeting, you have to be very, very, very clear of what needs to be discussed, because it's very easy to lose your path. And focusing on what needs to be done in the meeting and then what needs to come out of it and what is the way forward. So by breaking the meeting down into 3 simple steps really makes the meeting 10x more effective, and there are clear actionables that exist. So for any consumer business, your personal behavior will impact and shape your entire organization and how it thinks, and it will really help you build a very disciplined, strong, and fortified organization for the years to come. A key point in any consumer brand is to make sure you build your brand on a very strong foundation. I take an example of a simple chair. So a chair cannot stand on one leg. It needs to create 4. So you need to create multiple products in your portfolio to really remain resilient and show strong growth within your organization to really achieve what you have to and be resilient for the longer term. I'll give you a small example of our experience at Dot & Key. So back in 2020, when face serums as a category was just coming up, Dot & Key had a dominant position. We had about 15 to 18% of the entire market share of the serum category. And about 60% of our revenues were actually dependent on this one single category that we helped create in the country. Circling forward, because of the great opportunity that all the large players saw, they came in and started eating into our market share. And because of that, our single revenue stream really started getting affected, and the revenue numbers started kind of showing a downturn. But having said that, we took that as a strong lesson that we need to build multiple legs for our businesses. We then focused on 4 categories, and we built the 4 categories over the next 2 years to really make sure that the business becomes sustainable for the longer term and probably create heroes within our business for the next 20, 30, 40 years and be a strong consumer brand for the decades to come. So I think fundamentally having your eggs in multiple baskets for a consumer brand works. So you really need to build that to build a long-lasting, sustainable brand. So I think these are very small snapshots of what we personally feel and our clear learnings from working in the consumer space. We are hardcore D2C, we are hardcore online, but I feel online D2C businesses are also consumer businesses at the heart of it, and online is just a channel. And what we are building for is for the longer term. I open the floor for any questions anyone might have. Anyone, any questions for me? Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, you have a question. Yeah.
How did you go about with the formulation? Did you have a background?
So, yeah, great question actually. So my wife has a background. She's done chemistry in her undergrad. She really knows formulations and she's worked in the industry before. So I think her clear knowledge of marketing along with chemistry has really helped us build the right products and create very early product market fit actually. Anyone? Yeah.
Hi, Ajay. So I'm sure you must have also started selling online. You started with Amazon or any of the platform, or you started with your own website? And if either way, when was the time you decided that the focus should be more on the website or more on the marketplace?
So honestly, it was the first consumer business we were doing. We were like सब करते हैं, website भी बनाते हैं, Amazon पे भी जाते हैं, we do everything that we want to do. So obviously we started with a website because honestly the website is the heart of a D2C ecosystem, right? That's where the real pulse is coming from. That's kind of helping you create the entire marketing funnel, and you can't run a successful D2C brand without it. But having said that, you really need to be strong across marketplaces, from Amazon to Nykaa to Flipkart, whatever is available, in order to ensure that you have the right visibility and you build a strong brand across the internet and not just your website. Because each channel can go up and down, but as a whole, your business will always be strong. Like, standing on 4 legs rather than one.
Hi, Suyash. I'm Karan Kishorpriya, 24-year-old entrepreneur from Calcutta. So you mentioned something very interesting, sustainability and muscle memory and team. It both goes hand in hand, right? So for a younger guy or girl who's an entrepreneur, how do you go about finding your core team and keep them sticking on? What are you doing in your company to keep successful people at your company and not just monetarily?
I think the number one reason people stick around in an organization is when they are seeing two things. I think personal growth in terms of learning, not just salary, and second thing, respect. I think the moment they're getting the two and they're growing with the organization, and that's being seen by the leadership team, I think they'll like 90% of the time stick around if they really want to stay in the industry and stay in the space. And then ultimately your relationship, you have to build strong, long-lasting relationship with your leadership team. So the simple rule is you keep your leadership team intact, and then all the people who are newer can shuffle if possible, but your leadership team has to be there with you for the longer term, because they are going to help you kind of bear the shock when there is downturns, upturns. They're there with you, so it's very easy to tackle things, and that should be the focus. Make your core team and make them stick.
Just one more question, please.
Hello. Actually, good afternoon. Thank you for the presentation. Sir, I just wanted to know this. You are mentioning about the multiple streams of income in a particular business. But when we launch a particular range of products, so when is the right time to actually to go to the another range of products if I want to build the multiple streams of income? Or it is, you're talking about the platforms which we need to cater?
So just to get your question right, like when do you start creating multiple products in different categories? Is that your question?
Right.
So I think it's very simple. If the total, for example, I can tell you about skincare. If skincare is about 100%, out of which serums are 25, moisturizer 25, toners are 5, face washes are 5, for example. So you first create products for the bigger chunk. You create products for the larger market share, so that you can, if that product ticks, you can really go deep into the market, and really that product can be very successful. And that single successful product will help you create the portfolio of products that you need and will give it the eyeballs. So you start with a lesser number, say 3 or 4, like depending on what the strategy is, and then pivot, and you honestly start feeling the pulse that when you should launch new products. And you also need to see the G. Always focus on the G spot, right? As I always say, because if you focus where the growth is, and if you have a product where the growth's happening at the right ASP, the selling price, you'll always see growth, and no one can stop you from growing. Thank you.
From my end, what is the biggest threat that you're seeing in the e-commerce today? Because a lot of sustainability issues and other things are coming up. Are you seeing something that will disrupt the whole e-commerce in a positive or a negative way in some sense?
Yeah. So it's a great question. I feel the behavior shift in consumers have happened. E-com is mainstream. So the threat might be the growth's not 500%, it's 100%. But the reality of life is 100% better than a 12% that most companies are doing. So let's face reality and be happy with 100% and not target 1,000% when it's not logical for the long term.
Absolutely.
So embracing truth and reality of long term is how you build a business.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, and we really enjoyed your session, a lot of learning. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you.